Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back seriously to consistent Gotham recaps. We are going to be covering the FIDE Grand Swiss, which is a chess tournament that has a men's and women's side and basically combines players from all over the world. And the top two finishers in the men's side and the top one, the winner of the women's side, will make it to the candidates to compete for the World Championship of their respective cycles. It's a super interesting event. It allows players that are potentially low 2,700, even high 2,600 to win and qualify for the candidates, which is the tournament, the winner of which plays the World Champion. I'm sick, and I've been sick for 5 days. I have a cold. I'm COVID negative. So please show me your support in the comments. I gotta take my wallet out of I don't know why I have stuff in my pockets. Link is in the description to the tournament if you want to look at the standings. They're too long to attach at the end. I've included the most interesting games that I think from the first two rounds. And let's just go. Let's just get into it. I got my lemon ginger tea here. I don't feel great. It's kind of hard to talk. But, you know, I love what I do and I do what I love. So it's a sick chess tournament. Literally, the tournament is being held in Riga, Latvia. FIDE got an exemption, even though Riga currently has the highest rate of COVID in the world. You can debate amongst yourselves what you think about that in the comments. Here we go. This is from round number 1, Caruana, who's the top seed, playing against Maxim Chigaev, who's a strong grandmaster from Russia. And we have none other than an open Sicilian and a Najdorf variation. Now here, there's a ton of theory. I'm not going to get into all that. Bishop e3, bishop g5, h3 is a main line nowadays, and I have to cough, but I'm going to keep talking. h3 is played in this game. And black really chooses in the Najdorf whether to kick the knight out of the middle and give up the d5 square or play e6 in what's known as a Scheveningen, which is a word that I don't know how to pronounce and will not take the time to learn how to pronounce, so please excuse me. Now, g4. g4 is the whole point. And you will play bishop to g2, obviously. He's going to play bishop to g2 and bishop to e3, and he'll figure out what to do with the structure. His knight will likely rotate back somewhere. And then he'll expand furthermore. I mean, maybe g5 is coming. So h6, play bishop g2, bishop g2, bishop g2. Okay, it looks like he's playing rook g1 and bishop e2. So clearly I'm the idiot because I seemingly don't know where the hell my pieces are supposed to go. Yeah, this seems like some meta strategy. I've never seen this in my life. And, you know, the engine already thinks that black is so passive that white just has kind of all the activity and all the plans of the position. Because both sides have 7 pawns, there's going to be a lot of pawn battling. Just to give you an example of how delicate this position really is, if you play the standard move b5 here, you would be hanging your knight and actually trapping your queen almost. And if you play e5, then the knight gets to f5 and the knight gets to d5 and white gets a clamp on your light squares and wins the game. So, what does black do? Black plays g5, which is an absolutely ludicrous looking move. But basically, Chigaev is like, well, I'm going to fight for the dark squares. It's actually a thing that I'm completely fine surrendering because it's hard for you to move. Fabiano plays queen d2. Now we have knight to e5, moving the knight out of the middle, also moving the knight here, so f4 is not possible. Long castles, and now we have b5. Okay, black is just about a move or two away from getting vintage Sicilian play with bishop b7, rook to c8. So naturally, Fabiano has to get quick with h4, hg, rook h1. He basically needs to beat Chigaev to the initiative, or else Chigaev is going to have, you know, he's going to have all the Sicilian play that I just drew all those arrows, even though you weren't paying attention because you like to watch my videos while you code or do some other stuff. So rook to h1, he activates the initiative on that side of the board utilizing a pawn break. Chigaev steps out of the way, but the initiative is not over. Rook h5, rook h1. He's all in. He's going over here. Now here, Chigaev kind of slows it down with bishop f6, and it's not really clear what white's next move is. So Fabi plays f3, and this was the moment in the game where Chigaev should have taken over most likely with the move knight b6 to try to basically just go all into c4, at which point the position looks anything but pleasant after the move b3. If you play b3, weakening a3 and potentially the knight here, black strikes with d5. 2 moves which would have given Chigaev a very, very nice position, although it's still incredibly complicated, but that was his moment because f3 is a pausing move for white. And Chigaev plays queen e7. So he might have hesitated for a moment. He might have been preparing one of these 2 moves. Fabi plays king b1, which is just always a useful move. And now I guess Chigaev didn't like that his knight no longer had protection, so he decided to put his knight to c4 first. The thing is, if you do it this way, if I take this, you don't get a knight on that square. You get a pawn or a rook, you understand? And in a worst case scenario, you get a pawn, because now your whole attack is gone. Like, that's how delicate this position is. Your pawn blocks the rest of you almost want to just give this to your opponent. Like, here. So, oh, it would be kind of cool if that was a rule of chess. But he takes with the rook, and Fabi now plays b3, kicks out the rook, and you have the same position, but black did not actually land the knight to the queen side. So Chigaev had one moment, and here Fabiano Caruana had like a memory jolt and was like, wait a minute, I'm 2,800. Like, it's up to me to make the highlight reel of the tournament. Now, he has a lot of decent moves in this position, but Fabiano plays something really cool. Plays knight d5. That looks like a guess the Elo move. That just looks like straight up a blunder of a knight. But it's a very common Sicilian sacrifice to give up a knight on d5 to open up the king, or to get this clamp of a knight on the f5 square. Now, to the untrained eye, it just looks like after queen e5, you're down a piece and you're about to get mated. You're not. Bishop d4. If you try to trade queens with me, then I take. I can also take and take. So I just chop everything down, and I'm better in that position. So black plays queen e6, and Fabi takes on g5. So he's just got one pawn. He just has one pawn. The hardest thing to see in this position with white is what the hell you're doing next. Like, you calculate this, you're like, I'm down a piece. You have to be good enough to get here and go, it doesn't matter that I'm down a piece. You just look at your opponent's resources. Okay, he plays bishop c3, I play queen h2. What is black's move? And you have to calculate everything. I mean, this position where a lot of good players get lost. Because it looks like black has a million options. I mean, it looks like black can play the move. Why did my cursor freeze? That was so weird. Did you guys see that, or was that only on my screen? You can play rook g6 and protect d6. You can play bishop e5, knight e5, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so Fabi is in. All 5 of his pieces are doing something. He unashamed trades rooks and plays queen f4. And now rook h6 is coming, and it's really difficult to stop white's attack. And Chigaev tries to sacrifice the knight back and take in the center. Fabi stabilizes the middle of the board. And now all of the problems that black had a move ago still exist, except now black is not up a piece anymore. So it's like black was very unhappy but had $3 million. Or 3. I suppose it depends on your frame of mind. Now black is really unhappy and is broke. Kind of like an athlete who mismanaged their money, right? So now queen a7. And this is just very aesthetic. The game ends with the queen infiltrating like, what's up, biatches? I'm about to take everything! And a few moves later, rook h7. By the way, parents, if you're watching this with a kid, if your parents just heard that, biatch is not a word. It's actually, it's not a curse word. It's a chess term. Yeah, you didn't see, parents, you didn't know that. You shouldn't police your kids watching and, oh, it's cursing. No, you just don't know. It's a chess term. Anyway, Fabi, beautiful win. Like, crazy Sicilian win. It's so hard to play these guys. You just need one move to take over the initiative, and then that happens. The next game that I would like to show you is also from the second round. This is Maxime Vacher-Legrave versus Amin Tabatabai, very strong grandmaster. And Amin plays the Berlin. And Maxime is a very high 2,700 rated player, means like a 2,630, I believe. And, you know, you don't want to, obviously, you don't want to play into the main line of the Berlin, which goes castles, knight e4, d4, knight d6, bishop c6, dc6, de5, knight f5, queen d8, king d8, because you don't want to play into this, because it's so dreary, it's so boring. Nope. Actually, MVL plays directly into it. Why? He's like, well, I've played this against all the best players in the world, and I've probably done, like, if I had to ask MVL how many hours he's probably studied the Berlin endgame with an engine, like a Leela or a Stockfish, 500 hours? I mean, really, like, I don't know. It's an insane number. And he plays the h3 system. h3, knight c3. This is a common move order, not moving the rook, not moving the bishop. And Amin trades the knight on h4. This is a kind of a common idea. I cannot speak to the intricacies of this variation, and I did not look at the database whatsoever before I made this recap, because frankly, my eyes started hurting from just sitting in this chair and looking at the screen, because I'm a little sick. I just jumped right into the recap. I don't know the theoretical status of this position, but I do know that when white plays the move g4, black oftentimes will strike at the structure with the move h5, even with this bishop kind of offside. Now, you plug this into any engine, it just tells you it's equal. Actually, here, the engine thinks very briefly that black is even better, because the engine over-evaluates the overextended pawns and the bishop pair. At least my, Stockfish here on chess.com. So MVL plays king g2. Now, the actual ideas of this position are like littered with nuances. for example, h5, f5. Now, here, you would think that playing g6 is natural, but you might get your bishop trapped. Because how the hell do you get the bishop out? No, the engine actually thinks that this is 100% the way to go. That the bishop is not trapped at all. After FG, I mean, some, like, bishop e3, like, white apparently is in, like, even some issues here, I mean, right? Because the pawns are kind of falling apart. Hg4. Now, bishop g4, there might be rook d4, and knight e4, and knight f6. Like, it's very complicated. I mean, rook h1 comes to paralyze you. Like, black's king gets isolated in the middle of the board here, even with the extra pawn. And Amin goes back to e7. And that allowed MVL to now walk his king up and keep his pawns together. And when it was finally time for Amin to break out of this bind, MVL was like, no. By the way, kingside initiative, just like in the last game. You see, I do this on purpose. Patterns overlap. Lock down your bishop. Transfer your knight to the middle. No trades for you. You cannot get rid of this bishop. And just when it looked like black was ready to play long castle, a3, you have to move your bishop. Okay? Knight g5. And here, if you castle out of danger, or rather, stupid. You cannot castle out of danger because you already moved your king. But I meant to say, bring the rook and get your king out of danger. It simply takes too long. Because if you play the move rook d8, take. I mean, I'm forgetting the rules of chess, but you can excuse me because I have sinus congestion. It just takes too long. And then this pawn just is just right there. So, bishop d5, right? Take my rook. You cannot move anything. You can't move. And MVL just brings his rook. And then kicks the, make sure the bishop can't move at all. And, yeah, the ending to this game is one of the most depressing things I've ever seen. I mean, this rook looks like he acted out on a flight and wouldn't wear a mask, all right? Like, I mean, that rook looks like he's in trouble, serious trouble. He's getting cornered over there. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. Oh, my gosh. MVL just melts. I mean, is an extremely strong player, but it's fascinating the level of experience that comes with these Berlin games. Next game I would like to show you is this one. This is Vincent Keimer versus Jeffrey Xiong. Jeffrey had a rough US championship. He's looking to bounce back. Strong player, 2,700 formerly, but obviously the level is there. And Vincent Keimer's on the up and up. He's a German. I don't know if prodigy is the right word anymore. I mean, at what point do you stop being a prodigy and just start being like a strong GM who we just expect to get better? Now, the analogy I want to give you for this game, imagine a belligerent drunk guy attacking you and you needing to dodge, okay? I'm not going to tell you who's the drunk guy. You're just going to have to figure it out. Okay, the game begins with a King's Indian defense. Here there are many setups for black. Bishop f5, c6, knight c6, a6 stuff, knight a6, c5. I mean, you name it, it's probably a setup. c6, e4. And here Jeffrey plays a move I've never seen in my life, ever. Plays this. Now that move doesn't look that dumb when it attacks the pawn. And what he wants is he wants d5. He actually wants white to commit. And then either he will take and play bishop g4 or he will just play bishop g4. And we will get like white committing the structure, which white will commit the structure anyway. So queen e2, and now he plays bishop g4, which when they do it, it's like, oh wow, what an interesting move, getting the white queen out of position and then pinning it directly from the knight. And then when you do it, it's like, idiot, why'd you waste 2 tempi with the bishop? You're not supposed to move the same piece twice in the opening. So Jeffrey brings the knight back to d7, very common idea. Bishop e3, we have a locked center. Knight e5 goes for the bishop, and we have queen b6. So the idea of queen b6, by the way, there is a threat. The threat is queen b2. Like, look, a3, queen b2. That's pretty brutal, because you get hit with this fork, then you get hit with this, then you lose this pawn, then you lose this knight, then you lose the game, then you get kicked out of the Grand Swiss for playing like a complete moron. Actually, that's my fate. That would happen most likely. So Keimer doesn't blunder that. And now queen b4. So queen b4 is a problematic move because it's hard to defend this pawn. So bishop f1, believe it or not. Now at this point, if it's still not clear to you who is playing like the belligerent drunk, it will become clear in a moment. Because at this point, I don't know if Jeffrey went to the bathroom and took a swig of whatever he found. He did not do that, okay? I don't want to give a... Jeffrey's a super nice person. I don't want to make it seem like he only plays chess intoxicated, but, you know, b5. Okay. Sacrificing a clean pawn and playing the move c4. And Jeffrey's idea is he wants to play knight to d3. That looks like a serious problem. So here, Keimer plays queen c2 to make sure that the bishop covers that, and the knight can't land there, so the knight goes this way instead, and now the king has to come up. So Jeffrey's like, I'm gonna sack this pawn, and then I'm gonna go back. And now, you can't castle anymore. But the problem is that he activated the pawn cloud. I mean, the king's on e2. Like, this is like, you're playing with fire here. Now the queen gets booted, and here comes the knight getting booted. Like, because the opponent is playing with fire, you need to fight fire with fire. Sometimes. Controlled burns and all that. Some firefighters were writing in my chat about this, like some chat comments some videos ago. So f4 attacks the knight jumps in, and the king walks out. And yeah, he's like, I want this knight. So Jeffrey goes all in. By the way, none of these pieces are moving. Like, the knight has moved the last, like, 8 turns. And he wins the pawn on c3 back. Here's the problem. Now what? So now you have two choices. Take the pawn and go back, and then figure it out. Or just keep your foot on the gas and just hope for the best. Knight d7. Bishop c4, rook c8. Rook c7. Queen a4. I mean, he's just keeping his foot on the gas. He's not taking any pawns. He's just pressuring stuff. Maybe he's going to win the battle on the c-file. He's got to activate his knight somehow. Rook b1, b1, rook b1. And a couple of moves later, Jeffrey finally played f5. And I'm not going to lie to you, this is a terrifying position because the king is hugging some pawns and a bishop, while the pieces over here are having a party. Like all the pieces, by the way. Very unclear position how to play this with white. We have takes, and Keimer here apparently has to once again fight fire with fire. He has to play g4. I mean, that's an insane move. And the point is that after f takes g4, he plays h takes g4, and you have no attack. The pawns have thinned out, but so have black's pawns. Black has no pawns left. And then maybe queen c2, and actually you go for the attack yourself. But Keimer plays this, and now it's actually not so clear what the hell is going on after all, because the queen and bishop and rooks are actually getting closer to the king. So we have this, rook d1 and rook c3. I mean, it looks like black is just winning. I mean, it simply looks like black is winning. Like, visually, how the hell do you defend against this? King g2. You have no more checks. You have no more check. Oh, I should have known. I should have known it was never over. And now if you take, you get hunted to your death, maybe, but the engine says it's just a perpetual check. Instead, Keimer goes over here, gives a check of his own. By the way, just so we're clear, that's a completely hanging rook. The problem is that if you take this hanging rook, queen f3 and queen g2 is mate. So, yeah, don't do that. So we have this, check, and now queen d2. And now you're safe. Now it's a draw. Now, after queen f3 and king h2, I think rook c3 forces a draw. Queen d4 is met with rook g7. Black has too many threats and is just threatening to sacrifice and make perpetual check. But Jeffrey does this, and then this. And here's the problem. He loses everything. He only has a queen left. So now the only thing that he's hoping for here, and that's, I think, because of time trouble. I think that blunder happened on move 38, 39. I don't know what the time situation was, but that's around the time when you get your extra time and you have no time left. So Jeffrey might have made a split-second decision in time trouble, and the rest of this game is the queen violently hunting the king and the king running away. And so I'm going to sing a little song. Do 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 do. Now you see white has consolidated and ran the king to the side, so now they can't be checked. And now you will coordinate your pieces and either give mate or take all the pawns and promote. So the game ends with the king of blacks getting actually hunted down. And here Jeffrey resigned because after this, there was rook h7, king f6, rook f8. And either you go this way, and I think that's mate in one, or this way, and you would lose your queen. So Jeffrey resigned. Crazy game. Absolutely insane game. Now, next game I'd like to show you, this is from the Women's Grand Swiss. This game was also completely insane. I'm going to try to fit all these games in like 30-35 minutes, because, look, I appreciate all your support, but these videos are just simply too long sometimes. So we get Lei Qingjie, who's from China, one of the strongest women in the world, versus Ekaterina Atalik, who is an IM 2400, and she has the same last name as Suat Atalik from Turkey. They're either husband and wife or relatives. In Alabama, you can't even tell the difference. Okay, here we go. I believe they're husband and wife, but I don't know. They might just be related. Anyway, c5. By the way, if you're from Alabama, please don't be offended. We all know it's true. ED-CD, and we get a very interesting Benoni. So this is a Benoni defense where white has this pawn on d5, an empty c4 square, and oftentimes tries to put a knight there, if possible. White has played a fianchetto Benoni. Sometimes this is like normal, and a bishop is on f4, and black will try to play a6, b5. White will try to play a4 to prevent b5. Very interesting and dynamic game. In this game, black actually just trades on e4, and this is a fascinating position. I don't understand the Benoni for white or for black or for purple, and so here Yekaterina puts her rook on b4, baits a3, and then sacks the rook completely. Like, this just blows my mind. I don't know what the hell is going on, which is why I wanted to feature this game. So black is just going to get b2 and bring the bishop right back. And the engine here says white is slightly better, but there's plenty of life left. Okay, so we force white to play e3. Then we play knight a6. Where's that knight going? Because it's obviously not going to b4. Queen f3, b6. Interesting. So the knight is going to go back to c7. Now, in all these Benonis, white has some very serious pressure on d6. Black has a big liability, and e4, e5 is possible. If you cannot just pressure that pawn, you're going to break through the middle and cause some serious problems. So we have e4, knight e8, e5. At this point, it looks like white has just absolutely taken over the initiative. Here's the problem. I guarantee the engine doesn't like e5. Yeah, it doesn't like it. The engine likes restriction. It's kind of into that kinky stuff. So it likes queen g3 and locking in some pressure here, and maybe f5. It wants to render this bishop kind of obsolete, even though it controls a lot of space, and block these pieces from the game. The problem with e5 is you actually allow black to get some weird activity. And somehow you just cannot brute force your way in, because you will lose material, lose a pawn, and now you're not even up anything. This is why I don't get the Benoni at all. I don't get Benoni and Benko. I don't understand those openings whatsoever with white. So if you want to beat me, play those. Or I'll prep and just beat you, but I don't know. Knight f5, gf5, e6, bishop h2 check, king f1, knight g7, rook e2, f6. I mean, what the hell is going on? In a moment, black brings the bishop back. This is the most powerful bishop I've ever seen. Look at this bishop. It will never die. However, white has a pawn just waiting to become a queen. But where the hell is this bishop going to go? I mean, is it going to make it all the way around the board? Is a queen going to make it to f7? Is the I don't know. Find out next time on another episode of Gotham. No, I'm just kidding. Queen b5. Apparently here, black could have played king h8, rook g8, and was like, hi, I'm the one who knocks, and played knight h5, knight f4, and some sort of checkmate. I mean, king h8, rook g8 is pretty cold-blooded stuff. But black actually focused on the center, and, I mean, still, position looks incredibly complicated. Rook d3 prevents f3. The queenside pawns can't really move for black, so black is just trying to poke at these pieces, but, you know, f5 or something, yeah, that looks very human. Apparently, f5 is a huge mistake. I don't get it. Oh, it's because this bishop loses stability, and now you're always threatening to take and push the pawn. And now you need to defend this bishop. This pawn stabilized the whole position for black. The computer wants to draw in this position. Wow, one pawn move, and now you have to stay guarding this, and black tries to kind of expand, but the problem is that you've lost some queenside pawns, and I'm constantly threatening this, and yeah, now it's too late. No, but the engine still likes black's position after knight h5. Oh my god. Rook c2. Now, oh my god. Oh my, what the hell is going on? What is happening? This is why I should look at the game in full before I make the recap. No, I'm like, so you won all those pawns and black is still better here? Queen g6? Why is that better for black? I don't understand anything. Whoa, we just sacked the knight. Whoa, now it's a draw. Oh my god, rook g1 is a draw. Because rook g1, and it's a perpetual check. Because if king here, check is better for black, so you just make a draw. Instead, the king is getting hunted, but now rook h1, and all of a sudden white is winning again. Ah, no! Bishop e3! Rook g3, now queen h6, white is winning again. Oh my god. Rook g2, but now the attack is too quick. Oh my gosh. What a game. Oh! Oh my goodness. Queen c88, rook c8, and black resigns. What the hell was this game? This game was absolutely insane. This game was nuts. This game was absolutely crazy, but not as crazy as the last game that I'm going to show you. Last game, did I say it was 6 games in the beginning? It's 5 games. 5 games. The last game that I'm going to show you is this one. No. Sorry. It's this one. Between Alexander Predke and Nodirbek Yakuboyev. Oh no, it is. I'm stupid. It's absolutely 6 games. That was the Ali Reza game. Let's look at the Ali Reza game first. If you want to skip ahead to Predke, you can skip to Predke, but oh my god, let's look at this game first. This is from round 1 against Nijat Abbasov from, I believe, Azerbaijan. I think Nijat is like 2650. I mean, he's like incredibly strong. Yeah, this tournament is just full of absolute killers. So, we have a Petrov defense. And the Petrov defense is super solid, but not if you play d4. d4 is a rare move. Normally you have knight e5 and then like all sorts of main lines, but we have this, and Alireza plays knight d2, bishop e7, and goes for this slightly better endgame for white. This is slightly better because the pawn on e5 is a lot more stable than the pawn on e4. And he castles long, c6 prevents any knight b5 stuff, and Alireza plays bishop c4, and rook e1. I mean, just visually, this looks like white has achieved something very significant already in the opening. So, black is basically going to be content, or maybe not content, but at least up to the task of defending a slightly worse position. So b4 is actually kind of a threat, and knight b3 is a threat to potentially win this pawn. So a5. Now, Alireza is better developed. What does he do? How does he create an initiative? Well, he plays the move h3, which looks like it does nothing, but the point of h3 is that in the future, if given the chance, you will play g4 and knight f5. So, for example, this is already borderline just dead loss for black. More space, looks like those Berlin pawns, maybe f6 in the future, it's just a problem. So, black plays h5. Alireza now plays a3 because he's making a baby crab. Also, b4 is a possibility, but more like, you know, to meet b5 with bishop a2, maybe. And Abbasov plays bishop d7, king b1. Basically, Alireza is going to improve his position to the max until black either commits b5 or castles. Which is really effing convenient, because in this position, black commits to b5 and castles. The truth is that black, like, really doesn't have much of a choice. Black doesn't have many moves left. Really, like, black doesn't have many moves left. Once white fully commits to everything, like, white is going to start pushing some initiative. So black plays both those moves. The problem is that even though it looks like you have completely prevented g4, you have not prevented g4 at all. Why? Because after takes, you lose this. And then this is hanging. So your rook is hanging, but this is hanging, and rook h1 is made after that. So we have rook e8. Rook moves out of danger. Now there is a new threat of knight e7, rook c5. So the knight has to be protected via x-ray. Right, like this. This is now protected, which is still good for white. Alireza goes here and takes b5. And then he goes here and plays e6. A square that looks occupied by the opponent, but there is this. And that's a nice move. And e6 is the beginning of the end for black. Rook b7. Pawn takes f7 check. And now bishop e5. I mean, Alireza Firouzja then sacrifices a rook for the bishop and goes all the way to over here. And it looks like he is just checkmating. And the truth is that he is. Alireza just made it look super simple. Actually, Alireza started the tournament 2-0. So he's 2-0 in his first 2 games, playing very nice chess. Now number 7 in the world, number 6 in the world on the classical rating list. Unbelievable stuff from him. And I mean, this was just a smooth sailing game. I really wanted to show this game because Alireza just makes it look so unbelievably easy. But this game, folks, this is a game worth sticking around 30 minutes and watching a 35-minute recap for. This is one of the most amazing games I've ever seen. It's not a game that's completely like alien, you know, like this idea that you're going to see in this game it has been seen before, I believe. But yeah, well, just watch. So, a King's Indian defense. h3. Normally you play h3 to play bishop e3, because then there's no knight g4. This is a line that I've played many, many times. But we have h3, bishop g5. I don't know the theoretical status of this position. But Alexander Prietke is one of the, kind of rising stars of Russia, so obviously armed to the teeth with good prep. Black plays knight c6. As I told you in the other King's Indian game that Jeffrey played, you can play many setups and try to get white to commit in the center. He plays knight c6, and then e5. So this is kind of normal. And yes, this is an idea of bishop e3. Bait black into playing h6, back up, and then you have a target. So, d5. Now you obviously rotate the knight back, play knight e8, f5, or you shove the knight into your opponent's mouth with knight d4. Now that doesn't look kosher. That just looks like take, take, take. But it's dynamic, and it's not so clear. I mean, there's all sorts of tactics. Knight e4 is like a move. Because if you take, there's like queen e7 stuff. It's very unpleasant to play this f3, f5 maybe. I mean, yeah. But then, Alexander Prietke took with his queen, and then on knight g4, he took the knight. What? What? Here's the difference, I think. The other version, without h6, with the pawn here, might actually not be so bad for black. But this pawn is now a weakness. And after king h7, Prietke plays just normal moves. Bishop e2, and what do you do if you're playing with black? On the one hand, you have an extra queen. On the other hand, you have no effing moves. You have no moves. I mean, if you play c5, I might take en passant, but what if I don't? I mean, you run out of moves. Maybe I take en passant, and then I castle long and play bishop e3. Like, it's an incredibly complicated position. And Nodirbek was like, you know what? Screw this. Let's open the board up, because I have the queen. Logically, if I open the board up, I have the strongest piece on the board. This should work for me. Takes, rook h5. Now you've given me a target. And even though the queen is the most powerful piece, against the united common class of pieces, even the monarchs can fall, and probably will. That's deep. So bishop d, my mom is calling me. I think she's worried that I'm sick. Maybe in the head. Bishop d3, g5, gf, long castle, rook h1. What do you do if you're black? Well, black decides to have some fun. King g6. King d2. Like, king g6, king d2. Yes. fg, rook h1, bishop f5. Let's run the king. Just like in the Jeffrey game. Like the king is just getting removed from... Yo, get in the car, get in the car. They better start shooting. Just get in the car. King d7. Knight e3. Bishop b1. Like, you're forced to play these completely absurd moves because you have no moves. Bishop g4 check. There was some engine moves that were missed somewhere. Prietke could have played bishop d3. Okay, apparently here king c1 is even winning because this bishop is out of the game. Yeah, the engine just has king c1 and knight f5. I mean, okay, like, shut up. He plays here, f3. I mean, he didn't play a perfect game. He did allow his opponent some chances according to the machine, but the opponent was never in the game. I mean, it looked like white could just do anything he wanted down this queen. The queen had no moves. So finally, Nodirbek sacrifices material to try to break out of the bind, but the bind continues and he loses both rooks, and in this position resigned, as he was simply going to lose the remainder of his pieces. I've never seen something like this. After this game, I'm actually going to go look up if Leela thinks that this is the best way to play. Or some of you can tell me once the recap is over. Like, I'm going to use like Cloudbase or something and just see if this is some engine idea with a pawn on each side. I don't know. Craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. Now, folks, there's a lot of players in this tournament. The standings don't fit on the screen. Normally, I put them up. If you want to see the standings, just click on the link. Or follow on like any of the major chess websites. And let me know which players you want me to follow around, which players you want me to feature some more as they're doing well. We made good time. 35 minutes. Thank you all for hanging out. I'm going to go rest my sore throat. Peace out. Love you all. Get out of here.